Hello, everyone, and good evening. I'm Don Arleth, and welcome to World News Tonight, coming to you live from Warsaw. President Zelensky is ready to negotiate with Moscow again. Russia declares its desire for peace with Kyiv, but continues to attack the country, saying Moscow must achieve its goals first. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Cholera bacteria detected in Poland, the first case in several years. At least 875 people have been killed in the Gaza Strip at aid distribution points in recent weeks. And Ukrainians celebrate boxer Usyk's victory over Dubois. Ukraine is proposing a new round of negotiations with Russia. The Kremlin spokesman has responded by saying, "We want peace with Ukraine, but Moscow wants to achieve its own goals first." Those goals have historically included changing the government in Kyiv and taking de facto control of Ukraine. So for now, talks are ongoing and the attacks continue. Our chief political correspondent, Aaron Dahmen, has more.
These flames from the Ukrainian region of Sumy and this rubble in the Donbass, all signs of a deadly and painful war with no end in sight.
The neighbors screamed, but not for long. They got him out dead, and the blast wave damaged our house. The roof, windows, inside, the bathtub, completely destroyed.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky now reigniting his pitch for peace.
The negotiating dynamics must be increased. We must do everything to achieve a ceasefire, and the Russian side should stop hiding from decisions.
President Zelensky is also emphasizing his desire to sit down face-to-face with Vladimir Putin, while noting that head of the country's Security Council, Rustem Umerov, has offered Russia a meeting in the coming days. The Kremlin's response, telling a familiar story.
Russia is prepared to move swiftly. For us, the main thing is to achieve our objectives. They are clear, obvious, and unchanging.
Kyiv and Moscow's ceasefire efforts have previously fallen flat, including 2 rounds of talks in Istanbul earlier this year, with Zelensky travelling to Turkey and Putin failing to return the favour. But as Donald Trump promises to send American weapons to Ukraine through a deal with NATO and threatens severe sanctions if Russia does not come to the table by early September, the tide may be turning.
We believe that next weeks will be more fruitful about our collaboration with DC, with President Trump, and about finding different solutions.
On top of that, the EU has agreed on an 18th package of sanctions against Russia, finally convincing Slovakia to withdraw its veto. From dropping the price cap on Russian crude oil to blacklisting vessels of the so-called shadow fleet, there's hope it will hamper the Kremlin's economy.
It closes a very particular loophole, which is for 3.5 years now, EU member states have been able to import refined oil products like diesel from places like India, which is made from Russian oil. That is an embarrassment.
When it comes to unity, Europe may still face a turbulent road ahead. Andrej Babiš, the Czech billionaire whose Eurosceptic party is leading the polls ahead of October's parliamentary election, now vowing to scrap Prague's 5% defence promise if elected.
If I were at a NATO summit and we were discussing the 5% defense spending target, I would simply say that we need social peace here. And if Trump tells me to jump out of the window, I will not jump.
That would follow the lead of Spain, which says it was granted an exemption from the NATO pledge agreed to at The Hague last month. Back in Kyiv, reports are emerging of Russia potentially launching up to 2,000 drones at once to overwhelm Ukraine's air defences. And while the war-torn country is fighting back, with these pictures appearing to show a drone strike in Moscow, Zelensky's pitch for peace may continue to land on deaf ears. Aaron Dahmen, TVP World.
A suspected case of cholera has been detected in a patient in Poland's western Pomerania region. This is the first such case detected in the country in 6 years. As of now, doctors have confirmed the presence of the bacteria in the patient, but the source of the toxin is still under investigation. So where does this disease come from and what threats does it pose? Zuzanna Jurek reports.
On Sunday, a suspected case of cholera disease was identified in Poland. 2 separate laboratories confirmed that the patient, an elderly woman in Poland's northwestern city of Skaya, received a positive result for Vibrio cholerae, a bacterium responsible for the disease.
We have received yesterday information from the primary hospital that they have hospitalized patient with symptoms of acute and severe diarrhea, and there is a positive DNA test for Vibrio cholerae, which is bacterium responsible for cholera disease. After confirmation of this test by another laboratory, we announced that we have strong suspicion of cholera case in Poland.
The patient was transferred to a specialized infectious diseases hospital in the nearby city of Szczecin due to the disease's high contagiousness.
Cholera's genetic material was detected in the patient. What does that mean? It means that we have only detected the bacteria. We have not detected the toxin. Tests to detect the toxin are ongoing, and therefore this is a person with suspected cholera. But only once a toxin is detected can we diagnose this infection. We must treat this case with full caution and fully implement the appropriate procedures.
As a result of the detection, preventative measures were implemented.
Now we are dealing with investigation, epidemiological investigation, so we try to find source of this bacterium. We perform quarantine, which consists of 26 persons which are under quarantine, and other 86 persons are under sanitary control.
Cholera cases have been found in Poland, but they usually affect people who have recently traveled. The last confirmed case was in 2019, when an Indian sailor whose ship concluded its intercontinental cruise in another northwestern Polish city, Świnoujście, was diagnosed. The highly contagious disease spreads epidemically through water contaminated by patients and carriers. It is most often found in conflict-affected countries, though the UN has previously warned that climate change and rising inequality could lead to the spread of the disease.
From climate chaos to rising poverty and inequalities and multiplying conflicts. And when crises rage, health suffers. We see it across the globe, more than 20 million children missing routine vaccinations. Rising cases of dengue and other diseases linked with rising global temperatures. Cholera outbreaks in more than 20 countries this year alone, and a mountain of evidence that health is a casualty of war.
The main symptoms of the disease include acute watery diarrhea and vomiting, which leads to dehydration. Without appropriate treatment, it can lead to death within just a few hours. Cholera is treated with antibiotics and intensive intravenous and rehydration treatments. The source of the cholera case in Poland is not currently known, as neither the patient nor her relatives have recently traveled. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Almost 900 people have been killed at humanitarian aid points in Gaza in recent weeks. As the crisis deepens, another international mission is underway. A new civilian-led flotilla has set sail from Italy, hoping to break Israel's Navy blockade and deliver supplies to Gazans. Diana Skaya has the story.
These were the scenes in al-Sudaniya in northern Gaza on Sunday. According to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry, at least 67 Palestinians were reportedly killed by Israeli fire while waiting for aid trucks. In recent weeks, hundreds of Palestinians have been killed while waiting for aid and food. On Sunday, the Israeli military issued new evacuation orders in parts of central Gaza, areas that haven't yet seen direct combat. According to the United Nations, at least 875 people have died at aid distribution points in Gaza in the last 6 weeks. And amid the worsening humanitarian crisis, a new civilian-led mission is now underway. This Freedom Flotilla coalition ship, titled the Handala, set sail from Italy's Gallipoli port as crowds cheered in support. They have one goal in mind: to deliver aid to the war-torn enclave, or at least attempt to do so.
All the comrades, we are about to sail to Gaza to challenge the blockade imposed on our brothers and sisters.
The flotilla includes doctors, lawyers, politicians, and journalists. Some have spent years trying to reach Gaza.
I've been trying to reach Gaza since 2023 with Handala. So now at last we will sail, and we are sailing for the children of Gaza.
The vessel carries toys, water, medicine, and food, but organizers say the real goal is raising global awareness.
The idea of this is not going to feed everyone, it's not going to give everyone medicine. What it is going to do is it's going to bring the attention of the world onto the illegal blockade in Gaza.
Waiting, and we have many stuffed animals for the Gazan people. We're so anxious to get to Gaza to bring them these things for the children, for the children.
In the past, similar flotilla missions have been stopped by Israel. The Madlin, which carried Greta Thunberg, was intercepted by the Israeli Navy, diverted to the Israeli port of Ashdod instead, and its crew deported. The crew hopes to arrive at the Gaza Strip within 10 days. But whether they'll actually succeed this time around remains to be seen. For TVP World, I'm Diana Skaya.
30 years on, and the scars from the Bosnian War are still very much visible and felt by its victims. From bullet holes in buildings to mass graves of victims of genocide. Although now at peace, old grudges remain. Our Balkans correspondent Pavel Chaskovsky takes us there in this next report.
Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. On the surface, everything appears tranquil, but even souvenir stalls remind one of the war that ended just 30 years ago. Stray a bit from the beaten path and you'll find even more vivid traces of the war, like this shelled retirement home on the outskirts of Sarajevo, or bullet holes in the wall of the historical museum, whose director tells me about how difficult it is for the war wounds to heal.
At some points we think that we didn't move much ahead with dealing with the past.
Bosnia and Herzegovina is home to 3 ethnic groups: Bosniaks, Serbs and Croats. This ethnic diversity was the primary driver behind the bloody Bosnian War, which eventually ended with NATO military intervention and the signing of the Dayton Agreement. Since then, the country's been divided into 2 parts, the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina and Republika Srpska, but the divisions in society run even deeper than the administrative borders. During the war, Bosnian Serbs besieged Sarajevo for almost 4 years, the longest siege in modern history. 11,000 citizens lost their lives. Azra Imamovic was 3 years old when she fled the city with her mother and siblings.
My mum managed to get the last ticket on the last bus out of Sarajevo, and that meant within the space of maybe an hour of securing that ticket, just a state of panic. Even though we had bags kind of pre-packed, there was a lot of uncertainty about what we were going to do, and every day wasn't guaranteed.
Most families in Bosnia and Herzegovina are affected by war, and 30 years after the conflict's conclusion, the country is only seemingly at peace. And few places tell the story of this hidden conflict better than this memorial site in Potocari. More than 8,000 Bosniak victims of Srebrenica genocide are buried here, with new bodies recovered, identified and laid to rest each year. Srebrenica was a UN-designated safe area where Bosniaks could flee from war, but despite that, it was invaded by forces under the command of General Ratko Mladic. It took 16 years to capture him and put him on trial. Serge Bramertz, the chief prosecutor leading the case, tells me more about the gravity of Mladic's crimes.
He was indicted, prosecuted and convicted to a life sentence for the ethnic cleansing campaigns against Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats.
Mladic is now serving a life sentence in The Hague, but recently a motion to release him has been made by his lawyers, citing medical conditions that require palliative care.
He's getting all the medical attention anyone would receive in a similar medical condition.
But many believe that the eventual release of Ratko Mladic is not really the point in this case.
The point of them is to make a noise in the media sphere, to assist the same political elites that he was part of that are still ruling this country today.
And it is the president of Republika Srpska, Milorad Dodik, who has much to gain here. He has been playing the secessionist card for a long time now. Most recently, he was sentenced to 1 year of prison by the Bosnian courts for undermining the country's constitutional order and Dayton Agreement. But having defied the arrest warrant for 5 months, he eventually appeared in court only to be allowed to walk free. A major victory for a politician that called to the nationalist notions of Greater Serbia and Russia's Vladimir Putin.
The eventual release of Ratko Mladic might then be a scenario bordering on political fiction, but the very fact that it's being brought up reawakens various sentiments in an already divided country and adds fuel to secessionist narratives coming from Republika Srpska. From Bosnia and Herzegovina, for TVP World, I'm Paweł Trzaskowski.
Now to the world of sport, where undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Ukraine's Alexander Usyk, has defeated Britain's Daniel Dubois. Usyk is being dubbed the best fighter of his generation and now joins Muhammad Ali as the only men to reign undisputed in the heavyweight division on 2 occasions. After the victory, Usyk said that he had special help from his friend Ivan. Natalia Komarov has more.
Ukrainian heavyweight boxer Alexander Usyk secured his spot among the all-time greats by defeating Britain's Daniel Dubois at Wembley Stadium on Saturday night. Usyk delivered a devastating knockout in the 5th round and ended the night holding the title of undisputed world champion.
Fundamentally, I think we're now talking about a fighter who's so superior, we can put him on the same level as people like Muhammad Ali, Evander Holyfield. He genuinely is one of the all-time greatest heavyweight and cruiserweight boxers.
Usyk credited the win to his left hook punch, even giving it a special name, Ivan.
Left hook, yes. Hook is like this hook, and back Ivan. Yeah. It's Ukrainian name. Right. Yeah, Ivan is, is like a big guy who living in a village and work in farm. Like a big guy, like a Cossack. And what is your name? My name is Ivan. Yeah, it's a hard punch. Yeah, Ivan.
The whole nation of Ukraine were seated to cheer on their champion, including troops on the front lines. President Volodymyr Zelensky congratulated the fighter in a heartfelt message on Telegram.
Alexander Usyk did it again, absolute champion, our legend. Thank you for the strength and inspiration you provide to the whole country with each of your victories. Thank you for entering every fight with Ukraine in your heart. Congratulations on the victory to you, to our country, and to everyone who cheered you on.
The last time Usyk faced Daniel Dubois was on Ukrainian Independence Day in 2023 at the Wrocław Stadium. That match also ended with Usyk's victory.
Technical ability, amazing footwork, excellent use of both hands. He's just an all-round phenomenal fighter and really somebody that the Ukrainian people, as we saw of their celebrations last night, the whole country can get behind and really feel enormously proud of.
After defeating Dubois, Usyk said his plan for the near future is to take a rest and spend some time with his family. But he also said that despite being 38 years old, he feels he still has a whole career ahead of him. Hopefully, we will get to witness many more legendary punches from the Ukrainian champion. For TVP World, Natalia Komarov.
A Bulgarian artist is taking his work to new depths. Photographer Julian Nedev, who has made a career doing underwater photo shoots, now takes a fresh look at hairstyling. And from the looks of it, it's entirely possible to do underwater. Michelle van Blumenstein has the story.
What would an underwater hair salon look like? That is what Bulgarian photographer Julian Nedev tries to find out. The artist has started a project in which he attempts to capture what different professions would look like if done underwater.
I want to photograph people who actually do the job I'm portraying, not models pretending to do something they don't.
That's why he chose a model who in real life is also a hairdresser. Using transparent fishing lines, the artist creates the illusion that the hairdressing tools are floating freely.
I really loved his idea to shoot my profession underwater. I gave him my old tools, hair dryers, curling irons, combs, brushes. He picked a really cool background and outfit, my apron, which I normally work in. We added 2 wigs. We had a lot of fun. There were combs and hair dryers floating everywhere.
The sessions, however, are taxing for the models. Not only do they need to be able to hold their breath underwater for 2 minutes at a time, they have to do so without breathing in before submerging.
I need to stay calm and make sure I exhale all the air from my lungs so I look more natural underwater, without puffed cheeks or closed eyes.
Nadev has already captured various professions this way. His next session will involve a fitness instructor. For TVP World, I'm Michiel van Blommestein.
Ukraine has proposed another round of negotiations with Russia to halt the war and instate a ceasefire. The proposed meeting would be the 3rd attempt since May, a process that hasn't led to any major breakthrough. Meanwhile, German military intelligence indicates that Russia will soon be launching waves of attack drones on Ukraine, numbering in the thousands. And in Europe, where the EU just signed an 18th sanctions package against Russia, there's still division in the bloc that throws into question the united approach for supporting Ukraine. Now joining me to discuss is Yulia Osmolovska, director at Globsec in Kyiv. Hello and good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on World News Tonight.
Hi, good evening.
Now, I'd like to start with this proposed 3rd meeting for peace negotiations with Russia based on Russia's attitude, and it's likely not going to lead to any breakthrough. What do you think that Ukraine's proposing? Why do you think it's going to propose this other round of negotiations? What is Kyiv looking to accomplish here?
Well, definitely the purpose of Kyiv suggesting another round of negotiations is actually to prove that Ukraine is not objecting seeking the political and diplomatic solutions to the ongoing war, and is ready to consider and to meet the Russian side. Even more, our president indicated he is ready to meet with the president of Russia, despite the previous very strong position that we won't be talking with Putin at all. It is also a sort of indication for the American side to see them that Ukrainians are pretty much determined to follow on this way and to consider a ceasefire the first step based on the proposal suggested by the American side. However, in terms of what can be really achieved at this 3rd round of negotiations, there are more pessimistic expectations because we know that the both sides are looking differently at what should be discussed first, and obviously Ukrainian side is seeking and consider humanitarian issues first, like unconditional release of all prisoners of war, captured civilians, deported children, and then ceasefire, and then to go ahead to more comprehensive peace settlement, whereas Russians try to present it as a full package with all the issues at stake. Even some of them are completely detached from the reality, like for instance their demand to get control over 6 regions of Ukraine, which they don't control effectively right now. So we will wait and see what will happen. And our president said that this new round of talk was actually made also after Rustem Umerov, the former Minister of Defense, has moved to the position of the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, but still leading the Ukraine's delegation to the negotiations with Russia. And the president also indicated that the exchange of prisoners of war will be the topic number 1 at these talks.
The top priority, okay. On a July 3rd phone call between Presidents Trump and Putin, Putin said that he will be escalating for another 60 days, leading to Trump to set the 50-day deadline. Is it likely that we will see another massive offensive by Russia, or perhaps it's already underway?
Definitely, yes. I would say that the Russians haven't stopped sending their kamikaze drones and Shahid drones and making combined missile attacks on civilian population. And if we have had within the last year 2 or 3 nights without drones in the whole year, so this would have been a success. But actually every night we have these attacks over Ukraine, and this night, for instance, we're expecting over 700 drones, as had been reported by our monitors. So this is when it comes to the civilian component of that. So by that, Putin is trying to exert psychological pressure on the population for us to actually get tired and exhausted from all this fear here and actually press the government to be more soft in softening the negotiation demands, but this is exactly not the case. So it gets against Russians' expectations. Ukrainian public won't be demanding the government to do that. In terms of the offensive on the ground, I would call it like creeping offensive. They do hope to achieve some advances over the summer. This is why allegedly Putin told Trump over the phone call that unless they try the summer offensive, there is no reasons to expect that Russians might be softening their position. But this offensive, as I mentioned, it is creeping one, so it's not advancing very much on a particular point of a front line or even along the whole front line. So definitely it's not something that Russians could call a successful offensive.
Kyiv will have Patriots to defend against ballistic and cruise missiles, but according to Germany, a top German general, Russia is preparing to launch up to 2,000 Shaheds per strike. Now, this will be a big change for Kyiv to defend, and really, how will Kyiv defend against such drone swarms, and what can Western partners do to help?
Yes, exactly. You make the right point. So for all these intensified drone attacks over Ukraine, but also Ukraine is doing drone attacks over Russia too. Let's not forget, and reaching quite far area of Russia too. But the solutions to that should be effective. So we can't expect of shooting a drone costing 50K by a missile of Patriot costing 5 million euros. So Kyiv announced already, the President Zelensky, that Ukraine has developed a solution for a swarm of drones interceptors. And this is something that is being done together with the Western partners. So this might be a solution to that, and where the partners could help. So definitely getting more engaged in these joint ventures, helping, assisting with the financing, and actually get engaged in these cost-effective solutions with Ukrainians.
Despite the passing this week of the 18th sanctions package, we already are seeing that it is somewhat ineffective. The Greek tanker fleet is one of the largest in the world and accounts for about 20% of Russian shipments. Sources have told Reuters that these companies would continue to ship as much oil as they possibly can. How much will this recent sanctions package and the lowering of the price cap really impact Russia?
I would like to highlight that the whole system of sanctions against Russia has a cumulative effect. And this is something that we see already by the performance of Russian economy, which is overstretched and is expected to overstretch even more over the fall. Any next package of sanctions is very good. However, as we can see with all different package of sanctions that had been adopted before, if there are some like gray zones or loopholes that the countries could avoid in order to do the business as usual, then there are some adjustment of measures afterwards. So I'm pretty sure that, yes, this has been indicated as a loophole. So the next should be an adjustment of the solution on the EU level. And actually what might help here, there is a dilemma, there is a polemic about how to put sanctions as under the realm of foreign policy, which require anonymity voting, or in the realm of economic policy, which might get the qualified majority voting. So I think that shifting the sanctions topic to the economic stuff would help very much.
Final question. We have just about 1 minute left. Andrej Babiš and his ANO party in Czech Republic are leading in the polls for the upcoming general elections. He's refusing to spend the 5%, which was agreed upon in NATO, of GDP on defense. He also says that he doesn't believe that he believes that Vladimir Putin is not a threat to NATO, that he can't achieve, it's very difficult for Putin to achieve 1 kilometer in Ukraine, and it's also, NATO has a budget that's 13 times higher. Is he right in this assessment?
I would put the answer differently, because you have to understand the logic why these right-wing politicians are becoming more and more popular in Europe. And definitely it's not about the relations of the population towards the war in Ukraine and the resistance or the hardened security. So there are some internal economic issues probably that are on top of the agenda. And these guys are using very strong, effective, popular rhetoric. And then when they get this more and more support, so obviously their statements and their positions when it comes to foreign policy issues, they've been affected as well. So I would probably look more into what's going on in the country, how effective is a campaign against Russian disinformation and all this other stuff, and then it would enable us to perform better.
Yulia Osmolovska, Director at Globsec in Kyiv, thank you so much for your analysis tonight and joining us on the show. Appreciate it. And that's all the time we have here on World News Tonight. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.